The gate area at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport buzzed with the usual chaos of a Friday afternoon. Travelers shuffled through lines, dragging suitcases and clutching coffee cups, their voices blending into a low roar. Olivia Bennett stood near the priority boarding lane for Flight 782 to Washington, D.C., her boarding pass in hand, her posture straight but relaxed. She was a tall black woman in her early 40s, dressed in a simple navy sweater and jeans, her short hair tucked under a baseball cap. Her dark eyes scanned the crowd, calm and steady, betraying nothing of the storm about to break. "This doesn't look right," a sharp voice cut through the noise. Rachel Evans, the gate agent, peered at Olivia's boarding pass with a frown. She was a petite woman in her 30s, her brown hair pulled into a tight bun, her silver wings pin glinting on her navy blazer. She held the pass up to the light, turning it over like it was a counterfeit bill. "Business class? We need to check this. Step aside." Olivia tilted her head, her voice even. "Is there a problem with my ticket?" Rachel's lips thinned, her eyes flicking to Olivia with thinly veiled doubt. "Just step aside," she said, her tone suggesting she'd caught a thief rather than a passenger. She tapped at her computer, glancing at Olivia every few seconds, her fingers loud on the keys. Nearby passengers turned, their stares prickling Olivia's skin. Then Captain Daniel Hayes strode up, his pilot's cap tilted just so, his broad shoulders filling out a crisp white uniform. He was in his late 40s, with a square jaw and a tan that screamed golf courses. He leaned over Rachel's shoulder, squinting at the screen, then at Olivia. "What's the holdup?" he asked, his voice gruff. Rachel handed him the pass. "Says business class, but I'm not sure," she said, her words dripping with suspicion. Daniel took one look at Olivia, his lip curling slightly. Without warning, he stepped forward and slapped her hard across the face. The crack echoed through the gate area, silencing the crowd. Olivia's head snapped to the side, her cap slipping, but she didn't flinch. She straightened slowly, her hand brushing her cheek, her eyes locking onto Daniel's. The room froze. Passengers gasped, a few pulling out phones. Rachel's smirk faltered, replaced by a flicker of unease. Daniel stood tall, his chest puffed out, oblivious to the cliff he'd just leapt off. But Olivia wasn't just some passenger. She was a decorated war hero, a retired Army colonel who'd saved lives under fire. Today, she was traveling incognito, heading to D.C. for a veterans gala. That slap, it was about to cost Daniel everything. He wiped his hand on his pants, smirking. "Next time, don't waste my time," he said. Olivia's lips twitched, a faint, knowing smile. He had no idea what he'd just started. The morning sun barely peeked through the thick clouds over Atlanta as Olivia Bennett rolled her suitcase out of her modest suburban home. The air was muggy, heavy with the promise of rain, but her steps were light, purposeful. At 42, she carried herself with the quiet strength of someone who'd seen more than most. Decades in the U.S. Army, tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, and a chest full of medals she rarely spoke about. Today, though, she wasn't Colonel Bennett, war hero. She was just Olivia, a woman in a navy sweater and jeans, heading to Washington, D.C. for a veterans gala honoring her service. She'd woken at 5 a.m., same as always, the habit drilled into her from years of military life. No uniform today, she'd told herself, sliding open her closet door. Her fingers brushed past the neatly pressed dress blues, the silver eagle pins glinting in the dim light, and settled on a plain outfit instead. "No one needs to know who I am," she murmured, checking her phone. A notification popped up. "Congratulations, Olivia Bennett. Your upgrade to business class is confirmed for Flight 782. She smiled faintly, tucking her Medal of Honor citation into her carry-on's inner pocket. "Won't need this today," she said, zipping it shut. She couldn't have been more wrong. Across town in the crew lounge of Southern Sky Airlines, Captain Daniel Hayes sipped black coffee from a styrofoam cup, his broad frame slouched in a chair. The room smelled of burnt toast and jet fuel, a mix of pilots and flight attendants milling about in their crisp Navy uniforms. Daniel was a 20-year veteran of the skies, known for his no-nonsense attitude and a reputation for running a tight ship. Beside him stood Sarah Mitchell, the lead flight attendant for Flight 782. She was in her mid-30s, slim and sharp-eyed, her blonde hair tied back in a low ponytail. "We've got a full house today," Daniel said, his voice low, gruff. "And I'm hearing business class is getting crowded with the wrong types." Sarah nodded, her lips curling into a knowing smirk. "I saw the manifest. Some of these upgrades? They don't fit the profile." She leaned closer, her voice dropping. "Don't worry, Captain. I know how to keep things in line up there." Daniel set his cup down, his eyes narrowing. "Good. I picked you for a reason, Sarah. Our passengers expect a certain standard, not just service, atmosphere. You get me?" She chuckled, adjusting her silver wings pin. "Oh, I get you. We'll handle it." Their laughter carried across the lounge, a few crew members glancing over, some nodding in quiet agreement, others looking away. They all knew the drill. Keep the right people comfortable, nudge the wrong ones out of sight. It was an unspoken rule at Southern Sky, one Daniel and Sarah had perfected over years. But today, that rule was about to crash into something they couldn't control. Olivia arrived at Hartsfield-Jackson an hour later, her carry-on rolling behind her, her cap pulled low. The terminal was a sea of noise and motion, businessmen in suits barking into phones, families juggling strollers and snacks, travelers weaving through the chaos. She moved with purpose, her eyes catching details others missed, a young soldier in fatigues adjusting his duffel, a mother soothing a crying toddler, a janitor sweeping near the check-in desks. It was second nature, years of scanning perimeters in war zones translating to this civilian bustle. She checked her watch, plenty of time before boarding. Her upgrade to business class had been a surprise, a perk from her frequent flyer status earned through years of crisscrossing the country for military events. She didn't flaunt it, didn't need to. The gala in D.C. was the real prize, a night to honor her squad's sacrifice during a firefight in Kandahar, where she dragged 2 wounded soldiers to safety under enemy fire. The Medal of Honor had followed, a quiet ceremony she'd barely spoken of since. Today, she just wanted to blend in, sip a coffee, and make it to D.C. without fuss. But trouble was already brewing. She'd heard whispers about Southern Sky, online reviews from Black travelers complaining about extra scrutiny, cold shoulders from staff, seats mysteriously reassigned. A buddy from her old unit had warned her last month, "Watch yourself on those flights, Liv. They've got some folks who think we don't belong up front." She'd shrugged it off then, figured it was just noise. Now, standing in the terminal, she felt a prickle of unease. At the crew briefing, Daniel flipped through the flight manifest, his thumb pausing on Olivia's name. "Bennett, Olivia, business class, 3A, he read aloud, his brow furrowing. "Who's this?" Sarah leaned over, squinting at the screen. "No idea. Probably some loyalty glitch. We'll sort it out." "Make sure you do," Daniel said, tossing the tablet onto the table. "I don't want any surprises up there." Olivia reached the gate, her boarding pass ready, her carry-on at her side. She didn't see Daniel watching from the jet bridge, didn't hear Sarah muttering to Rachel Evans, the gate agent, about keeping an eye on 3A. She didn't know she'd already been marked, not as a hero, not as a colonel, but as someone who didn't belong. As she stepped into the priority lane, Rachel's voice rang out, sharp and loud. "This doesn't look right." The words hit Olivia like a warning shot, but she kept her cool, her hand steady on the pass. She'd faced worse than this. Bullets, bombs, chaos. A gate agent with a chip on her shoulder. That was nothing. Or so she thought. Daniel adjusted his cap, stepping closer to the counter, his eyes locking onto her. He didn't know it yet, but he was about to light a fuse that would burn his career to the ground. And Olivia? She was ready to let it happen. One calm, calculated step at a time. The terminal at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport pulsed with life as Olivia Bennett navigated the crowd, her carry-on rolling smoothly behind her. The air smelled of coffee and jet fuel, a familiar mix from years of deployments and homecomings. She moved with purpose, her navy sweater blending into the sea of travelers, her baseball cap shading her eyes. At 42, she'd learned to read a room, or a war zone, in seconds, and today, something felt off. The glances lingered too long, the whispers carried a sharp edge. She brushed it aside, chalking it up to nerves before the gala. She'd been wrong before, but not this time. Her first stop was the security checkpoint, a bottleneck of tired travelers and buzzing machines. She joined the line, her carry-on light, clothes for 3 days, a pair of dress shoes for the event, a small photo of her squad from Kandahar tucked in a side pocket. No medals, no uniform, nothing to hint at who she was. She liked it that way. The TSA agent ahead waved a white businessman through with a nod, then an elderly white couple with a smile. Olivia stepped up, placing her bag on the conveyor belt, her boarding pass ready. "Step aside, ma'am," the agent said, his voice flat. He was a stocky guy in his 50s, gray hair peeking from under his cap, name tag reading Tom Willis. His blue-gloved hand hovered over her bag, his eyes avoiding hers. Olivia tilted her head, keeping her tone even. "Everything okay?" "Random screening," Tom said, already reaching for her carry-on. He didn't look at her, didn't explain. Random. The word hung there, heavy and hollow. She watched as a white teenager with a backpack full of gadgets breezed through, then a white woman in yoga pants with a bulging tote. Random. She'd seen this play before. Too many airports, too many random checks that weren't random at all. Tom unzipped her bag, his hands rough as he rummaged through her things. Her folded jeans spilled out, the photo of her squad tumbling onto the table. He picked it up, squinting, then tossed it aside like junk. "What's this?" he asked, pulling out her shoebox, his voice loud enough to turn heads. "Shoes," Olivia said, her calm unshaken. "For a gala." He opened the box, shaking it like he expected contraband to fall out. Nothing. Just black heels, scuffed from a previous event. He grunted, shoving them back, then moved to her toiletries, a clear plastic bag with toothpaste, a comb, a small bottle of lotion. "Gotta check this," he said, holding it up for everyone to see. Travelers glanced over, some curious, some annoyed at the delay. "It's all standard," Olivia said, her voice still level. She'd faced insurgents with less scrutiny than this guy was giving her toothpaste. Tom ignored her, running the bag through the scanner again. The screen blinked green. No threats, no surprises. He handed it back, his fingers brushing hers, his face blank. "You're clear," he said. No apology, no eye contact, just a quick shuffle to the next person. Olivia repacked her bag. Her squad photo creased at the corner now. She smoothed it out, her jaw tight, and moved on. Across the terminal, Captain Daniel Hayes watched from a coffee stand, his broad frame leaning against the counter. He'd finished his briefing and was killing time before boarding. His pilot's cap tilted back. Sarah Mitchell joined him, her flight attendant uniform crisp, her ponytail swinging as she walked. "See that?" Daniel asked, nodding toward Olivia as she left security. "That's our 3A. Sarah sipped her latte, her eyes narrowing. "She's got that look, like she thinks she's somebody." "She's nobody," Daniel said, his voice low. "Just another upgrade glitch. Keep her in check up there." Sarah smirked, setting her cup down. "Oh, I will. Trust me." Olivia reached Gate 14, the boarding area for Flight 782. The electronic sign flashed, "On time," and business class passengers clustered near the priority lane. Men in suits with leather briefcases, women in tailored jackets with designer purses. She stood among them, her jeans and sweater a quiet contrast, her carry-on plain next to their polished luggage. She didn't care. She'd earned her spot, not with money or flash, but with miles logged and a loyalty program that finally paid off. That's when she noticed a family struggling near the gate. A black couple with 2 kids, maybe 6 and 8, fumbling with their tickets. The father, a wiry guy in a polo shirt, squinted at the boarding passes, while the mother tried to calm the younger boy tugging at her hand. Olivia stepped over, her voice soft. "Need a hand?" The father looked up, relief washing over his face. "Yeah, these say economy, but they told us we're split up." Olivia took the passes, scanning them quickly. "You're fine," she said. "Same row, just different seats. I'll ask them to fix it." She walked them to the counter, explaining the mix-up to a distracted agent who barely glanced at her. "Can you seat them together?" she asked. The agent sighed, typing lazily. "I'll see." 2 minutes later, the family had new passes, all in a row. The mother squeezed Olivia's arm, her smile warm. "Thank you, really." "No problem," Olivia said, nodding. She'd spent years leading soldiers, fixing problems under pressure. This was nothing. But Daniel saw it all from the jet bridge entrance, his coffee cup crumpling in his hand. He'd been pacing, waiting for Rachel to signal boarding. "Who's that?" he asked, his voice sharp as he pointed at Olivia. Rachel Evans glanced over, her bun tight against her scalp. "That's your 3A. Helping some family now, like she runs the place." Daniel's jaw clenched. "She's a passenger, not staff. Tell her to cut it out." Rachel strode over, her heels clicking. "Hey," she called, her voice loud enough to draw eyes. "You're not an agent. Stop messing with other people's tickets." Olivia turned, her cap shadowing her face. "I was just helping," she said, calm as ever. "They're sorted now." "Yeah, well, leave it to us," Rachel snapped, crossing her arms. "And clean up that trash over there." She pointed to a crumpled napkin on the floor, 10 feet away, left by someone else. Olivia paused, her eyes steady. "I'm not an employee," she said, her tone factual, no heat. "I'm a passenger." Rachel's smirk faltered, but her voice didn't. "Could have fooled me," she said, loud enough for the family and nearby passengers to hear. "You blend right in with the help." The mother's smile faded, the father shifting uncomfortably. Olivia took a slow breath, her hands resting on her carry-on. 20 years in the army had taught her patience, taught her when to fight. This wasn't the moment. Not yet. Daniel crumpled his cup completely, tossing it into a bin. "That's enough," he muttered to Sarah, who joined him. "She's trouble. Keep her quiet, on board." Sarah nodded, her smirk returning. Oh, she'll be invisible by the time we're up there. Olivia adjusted her cap, her fingers brushing the hidden pocket where her citation sat. They thought she was nothing. A janitor, a nuisance, a glitch. They had no idea who they were dealing with. And soon, they'd wish they'd never crossed her path. The boarding process for Flight 782 at Gate 14 was in full swing, a steady stream of passengers filing through the priority lane. Olivia Bennett stood near the counter, her carry-on at her side, her navy sweater blending into the crowd. The electronic sign overhead blinked boarding, and the air buzzed with the hum of rolling suitcases and clipped announcements. She held her boarding pass, business class, seat 3A, ready to hand over, her posture calm despite the unease prickling her spine. She'd faced worse than gate agents and crowded airports, but the stares today felt sharper, heavier. Rachel Evans, the gate agent, looked up from her computer as Olivia approached, her brown bun tight against her scalp, her silver wings pin catching the light. "Pass," she said, her voice flat, her hand outstretched. Olivia handed it over, watching Rachel's eyes flick from the paper to her face, then back again. The agent's frown deepened, her fingers tapping loudly on the counter. "This doesn't look right," Rachel said, her tone sharp enough to cut through the chatter. She held the pass up, turning it over like it was a puzzle she couldn't solve. "Business class? We need to verify this." Olivia kept her voice steady, her hands still. "Is there an issue with my ticket?" Rachel's lips thinned, her gaze darting to Olivia with open skepticism. "Step aside," she said, waving her hand like she was shooing a fly. "We'll figure this out." She turned to her screen, typing with exaggerated force, her glances at Olivia laced with doubt. Nearby passengers shifted, some craning their necks, others whispering. A white man in a suit breezed through with a nod, his pass barely checked. A white woman with a designer tote followed, her ticket waved through with a smile. Olivia stood there, her cap low, feeling the weight of every eye. Captain Daniel Hayes emerged from the jet bridge, his broad frame filling the space, his pilot's cap tilted just so. He leaned over Rachel's shoulder, squinting at the screen. "What's the delay?" he asked, his voice gruff, impatient. Rachel handed him the pass. "Says 3A business class," she said, her words slow, deliberate. "Doesn't add up." Daniel took it, his eyes flicking to Olivia. He sized her up, jeans, sweater, no flash, and his lip curled faintly. "How'd you get this?" he asked, his tone dripping with accusation. "These seats don't come cheap." "I booked it," Olivia said, her voice level, her gaze locked on his. "Paid with my card. Not that it matters." Daniel snorted, handing the pass back to Rachel. "It doesn't matter. Fraud's a big deal around here." He crossed his arms, his chest puffed out. "We need to check your payment. Now." Olivia tilted her head, her patience thinning but intact. "It's a valid ticket. Check your system." Rachel typed again, her fingers loud, her smirk growing. "System says it's confirmed," she admitted, her voice reluctant. "But I'm not convinced." Daniel stepped closer, his shadow falling over Olivia. "Not convinced? Neither am I." He turned to Rachel. "Call it in. I want customer service on this." 10 minutes ticked by. 10 minutes of Olivia standing aside while passengers streamed past, their glances a mix of curiosity and pity. Rachel made a show of the call, her voice loud. "Yeah, I've got a passenger here with a questionable upgrade. Business class. Need verification." She shot Olivia a look, her eyes gleaming with satisfaction. Daniel stood by, arms crossed, his presence a silent threat. Finally, a supervisor approached. "Mark Thompson." A wiry man in his 40s with a clipboard and a tired expression. He glanced at the screen, then at Olivia. "It's legit," he said, his voice clipped. "Booked 3 weeks ago. Platinum member. She's good." Rachel's smirk faltered, but Daniel's didn't. "Fine," he said, his tone grudging. "Let her board. But I'm watching this one." He pointed at Olivia, his finger inches from her face. She didn't flinch, just nodded once, and headed for the jet bridge. The narrow walkway felt claustrophobic, the hum of the plane's engines vibrating through the walls. Olivia's sneakers thudded softly, her carry-on rolling behind her. She'd almost reached the aircraft door when Daniel's voice rang out again. "Hold up," he called, striding up fast. He grabbed her bag, yanking it from her hand with enough force to jolt her arm. "This looks oversized." "It's standard," Olivia said, her voice firm now, her calm wearing thin. "Same bag I've used for years. Don't touch my stuff." Daniel ignored her, unzipping it with a rough tug. Her clothes spilled out. Jeans, a sweater, the photo of her squad hitting the floor. He kicked the photo aside, his polished shoe smearing dirt across it. "What's in here?" he demanded, digging deeper. He pulled out her toiletries, tossing the plastic bag onto the walkway. The photo slid toward the edge, teetering. "Nothing you need to see," Olivia said, stepping forward to grab her things. "Back off." That's when it happened. Daniel's hand shot out, fast and hard, slapping her across the face. The crack echoed in the tight space, her cap flying off, her cheek stinging red. "Don't tell me what to do," he shouted, his voice bouncing off the walls. "You're reaching for something. What is it?" Olivia stumbled back a step, her hand brushing her face, her eyes blazing. Passengers behind her froze, phones slipping out of pockets, cameras rolling. Daniel stood tall, his chest heaving, his hand still raised. "You're a problem," he snapped. "I knew it." Sarah Mitchell appeared at the aircraft door, her blonde ponytail swinging, her smirk fading as she saw the scene. "Captain?" she asked, her voice uncertain. "She's disruptive," Daniel said, pointing at Olivia. "Call security. Now." Sarah hesitated, then darted inside, her voice crackling over the intercom. "Security to the jet bridge. Disruptive passenger." Olivia straightened, her cap on the floor, her bag a mess around her feet. She bent slowly, picking up the photo, her fingers tracing the faces of her squad, men and women who'd trusted her with their lives. The sting on her cheek burned, but her face stayed blank, her breathing steady. She'd taken hits before, bullets grazing her shoulder, shrapnel slicing her leg. This was nothing, but it was everything. Passengers whispered, their phones capturing every second. A businessman in a gray suit muttered, "She didn't do anything." A woman with a toddler clutched her child closer, her eyes wide. Olivia stood, her belongings in her arms, her gaze locked on Daniel. He smirked, thinking he'd won, thinking she'd break. He had no clue. Sarah returned, her steps quick. "They're coming," she said, her voice low. "What happened?" "She's a threat," Daniel said, his tone final. "Look at her, acting like she owns the place." Olivia's lips twitched, that faint smile creeping back. She'd heard worse, from drill sergeants, from enemy commanders. She'd survived worse. And now she'd let them dig their own graves. 2 security guards rounded the corner, their boots heavy on the walkway. They were young, maybe 30, their faces professional but confused. "What's the issue?" one asked, his name tag reading James Carter. Daniel pointed at Olivia. "She's causing trouble. Threaten me. Get her off my plane." James frowned, glancing at Olivia. She stood still, her bag repacked, her cap back on, her cheek red, but her posture unbroken. I didn't threaten anyone, she said, her voice clear, calm. He hit me. The guards exchanged a look, their hands hovering near their radios. Passengers nodded, one holding up a phone. Got it on video, he said. She didn't move. Daniel's smirk faded, his eyes narrowing. She's lying, he snapped. Check her bag again. She's hiding something. Olivia took a slow breath, her hand slipping toward her carry-on's inner pocket. Maybe this will clear things up, she said, her voice steady, her movements deliberate. Daniel tensed, his hand twitching, ready to strike again. He thought he was in control. He was dead wrong. The jet bridge of Flight 782 felt like a pressure cooker, the air thick with tension, and the hum of the plane's engines. Olivia Bennett stood surrounded by chaos, her carry-on at her feet, her cap back on, her cheeks still red from Captain Daniel Hayes's slap. Her belongings were scattered from his rough search, the photo of her squad creased and dirt-streaked on the floor. Passengers lined the walkway, their phones out, recording every second of the standoff. Daniel loomed over her, his broad frame tense, his pilot's cap tilted as he barked orders. Check her bag again, he snapped at the security guards. She's hiding something. James Carter, the lead guard, hesitated, his hand on his radio. He was young, maybe 30, with a buzz cut and a wary expression. His partner, a stocky woman named Lisa Grant, stood beside him, her eyes darting between Daniel and Olivia. She says you hit her, James said, his voice steady but cautious. We've got witnesses. Daniel's face darkened, his jaw clenching. She's lying, he said, his voice rising. She threatened me, reached for something. I acted in self-defense. He pointed at Olivia, his fingers shaking slightly. Get her off my plane. Now. Olivia took a slow breath, her dark eyes locking onto Daniel's. She'd faced down enemy fire, dragged soldiers through hell, and stared death in the face without blinking. This man, he was nothing. Her hand moved deliberately to her carry-on's inner pocket, her fingers brushing the hidden flap. Maybe this will clear things up, she said, her voice calm, unshaken. Daniel flinched, his hand twitching as if to strike again. She's reaching! He shouted, stepping forward. Stop her! But James raised a hand, his tone firm. Hold on, sir. Let's see what she's got. Olivia pulled out a slim leather case, flipping it open with a flick of her wrist. Inside gleamed a gold medal, its ribbon folded neatly, and beside it, a laminated citation card. She held it up, letting the light catch the words etched in bold. Medal of Honor, Colonel Olivia Bennett, United States Army. The jet bridge went silent. The only sound the faint whine of the engines and the rustle of passengers shifting closer. James's eyes widened, his posture stiffening. Colonel Bennett, he said, his voice cracking slightly. He'd served a stint in the National Guard, long enough to know what that medal meant. The Olivia Bennett? Kandahar 2012? That's me, Olivia said, her tone even, her gaze never leaving Daniel. Retired last year, heading to D.C. for the Veterans Gala. The silence shattered. Passengers gasped, whispers rippling through the crowd. No way, a woman muttered, her phone trembling in her hand. She's a hero? A man in a suit choked out, zooming in. Lisa Grant stepped forward, peering at the citation, her jaw dropping. Holy, it's real, she said, her voice low. Daniel's face drained of color, his hand falling limp at his side. The smirk was gone, replaced by a flicker of panic. His chest heaved, his eyes darting from the medal to Olivia, then back again. That's not, he stammered, his voice faltering. You didn't say. Didn't need to, Olivia cut in, her words sharp now, slicing through his excuses. You didn't ask. You just assumed. She closed the case, slipping it back into her pocket, her cheek still stinging. Assumed I didn't belong. Assumed you could hit me and walk away. Sarah Mitchell stumbled out from the aircraft door, her blonde ponytail askew, her eyes wide. "Captain?" she said, her voice small, uncertain. She'd heard the commotion, caught the tail end of Olivia's words. "What's going on?" "She's a colonel," James said, his tone hardening. "Medal of Honor." And he slapped her. He nodded at Daniel, whose tan had faded to a sickly gray. Sarah's mouth opened, then closed, her hands twisting together. We didn't know," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "You didn't care," Olivia said, her gaze shifting to Sarah. "You ignored me. Checked my ticket like I stole it. Let him trash my stuff." She pointed at the photo on the floor, her squad's faces staring up through the dirt. "That's my team. People I fought for. People I'd die for. And you thought I was nothing." The passengers erupted, their voices overlapping. "She's a hero!" a woman shouted, her phone still rolling. "He hit her for no reason," a man added, his voice shaking with anger. The businessman in the gray suit stepped forward, his footage clear. "It's all here," he said, holding up his phone. "She didn't move. He just lost it." James unclipped his radio, his movements swift. "This is Carter at Gate 14, he said, his voice crisp. "We've got an assault on a passenger, Colonel Olivia Bennett, Medal of Honor recipient, requesting backup and arrest support." Daniel staggered back, his cap slipping, his hands trembling. "Wait," he said, his voice rising to a desperate pitch. "You can't do this. I'm the captain. I was keeping the plane safe." "Safe?" Olivia said, her voice low, deadly. "You hit me because you didn't like my face, because I didn't fit your picture of business class." She stepped closer, her eyes boring into his. "You don't get to hide behind that uniform, not today." Lisa snapped handcuffs from her belt, her face set. "Captain Daniel Hayes," she said, her tone formal. "You're under arrest for assault." She moved behind him, grabbing his wrist. The metal clicked shut, loud in the stunned silence. "You can't," Daniel shouted, twisting against the cuffs. "I'm in charge here. This is my plane." "Not anymore," James said, securing the second cuff. "Your rank doesn't mean squat when you break the law." Sarah backed away, her hands up, her face pale. "I didn't do anything," she said, her voice shaking. "I just followed orders." "You watched," Olivia said, turning to her. "You helped. You stood there while he trashed my bag, while he hit me. That's not nothing." Lisa glanced at James, then at Sarah. "Step back," she said, her hand on her own cuffs. "Or you're next for obstruction." Sarah froze, her breath hitching, then retreated toward the plane, her eyes darting for an escape that wasn't there. The jet bridge filled with noise, passengers cheering, phones flashing, the crackle of radios as more guards arrived. Daniel struggled, his voice hoarse. "This is a mistake," he yelled, his uniform wrinkling under Lisa's grip. "She provoked me." "Provoked you?" the businessman snapped, his video still running. "She didn't even raise her voice." Olivia picked up her photo, brushing off the dirt, her fingers steady. She'd faced worse than this. Sandstorms, ambushes, loss. She'd survived it all. And now, standing there with her cheek red, and her squad in her hand, she watched Daniel's world crumble. He'd thought he was untouchable, thought his wings gave him power. He'd thought wrong. James nodded to her, a flicker of respect in his eyes. "Colonel," he said, "we've got this. You okay?" "Yeah," Olivia said, her voice soft but firm. "I'm good." She adjusted her cap, her carry-on back at her side. The guards led Daniel away, his shouts fading as the aircraft door loomed ahead. Sarah hovered near it, her face a mask of panic, knowing her turn was coming. Olivia stepped forward, her head high. She'd boarded as a nobody in their eyes. Now they'd never forget who she was. And this was just the beginning. The jet bridge of Flight 782 vibrated with tension as Captain Daniel Hayes stumbled backward, his wrists cuffed, his pilot's cap askew. The metallic click of the handcuffs still echoed, a stark sound against the hum of the plane's engines. Olivia Bennett stood tall, her navy sweater creased, her cheek red from Daniel's slap, but her dark eyes burned with quiet resolve. Passengers crowded the walkway, their phones out, capturing every second of the chaos. Security guards James Carter and Lisa Grant flanked Daniel, their faces set, while Sarah Mitchell hovered near the aircraft door, her blonde ponytail limp, her hands trembling. James adjusted his grip on Daniel's arm, his voice firm. "Let's go," he said, steering him toward the terminal. "You're done here." Daniel twisted, his face flushed with rage. "You can't do this," he shouted, his voice cracking. "I'm the captain. This is my plane." His uniform wrinkled under the strain, his authority slipping with every step. "Not anymore," Lisa said, her tone cold. "You assaulted a passenger, a war hero. That's a wrap." She pushed him forward, his protest fading into the terminal's noise. Olivia watched him go, her carry-on back at her side, the photo of her squad tucked safely in her pocket. She'd faced worse than this: bullets, bombs, chaos. But this victory felt different. It was fast, raw, and public. She brushed her cheek, the sting fading, and turned to James. "Thanks," she said, her voice steady. He nodded, a flicker of awe in his eyes. "Colonel, we're sorry this happened. Should have stopped him sooner." "You stopped him now," she said, her lips twitching into a faint smile. "That's enough." The jet bridge cleared as more guards arrived, their radios crackling with updates. Passengers cheered, some clapping, others shouting support. "You're a legend," a woman yelled, her phone still rolling. "He got what he deserved," a man added, pumping his fist. Olivia nodded once, acknowledging them, but her focus shifted to Sarah, who stood frozen at the aircraft door, her face pale. Sarah's hand shot up, her voice shaky. "I didn't hit anyone," she said, stepping back. I followed orders." Olivia's gaze hardened. "You ignored me," she said, her words cutting through Sarah's excuse. "You watched him trash my bag, stood there when he hit me. That's not following orders. That's choosing sides." Lisa turned to Sarah, her cuffs still in hand. "You're not off the hook," she said, her voice sharp. "Step aside or you're coming with us." Sarah's breath hitched, her eyes darting to the guards, then to the passengers filming her every move. "Please," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I didn't mean—" "Save it," James cut in, nodding to Lisa. "She's complicit. Take her." Lisa moved fast, grabbing Sarah's arm. "Sarah Mitchell, you're under arrest for aiding an assault," she said, snapping the cuffs on. Sarah gasped, her knees buckling, but Lisa held her steady, leading her out after Daniel. Her cries echoed faintly. "This isn't fair," until the terminal swallowed them whole. The aircraft door loomed open, the cabin buzzing with activity. Passengers filtered back in, their voices a mix of shock and triumph. Olivia picked up her cap, brushing it off, and stepped aboard. The gate area erupted as airline staff rushed in. Mark Thompson, the supervisor, leading the charge, his clipboard clutched tight. "Colonel Bennett," he said, his voice strained, his face flushed. "I'm so sorry. This is unacceptable. We're handling it." "Handle it fast," Olivia said, her tone firm but calm. "I want every camera feed saved. Gate, jet bridge, plane. All of it." Mark nodded, scribbling on his clipboard. "Already on it." Southern Sky's CEO is on the line. He wants to speak with you. Minutes later, a tablet was thrust into Olivia's hands, the screen flashing, CEO call. Richard Coleman, a gray-haired man in his 60s, appeared, his tie loose, his expression grim. Colonel Bennett, he said, his voice heavy. I'm horrified by what happened. On behalf of Southern Sky, I apologize. This doesn't reflect our values. Olivia raised an eyebrow, her cheeks still red. Your staff made it pretty clear what they value, she said. I'm not here for apologies. Fix it. Richard swallowed, nodding fast. We're terminating Captain Hayes and Ms. Mitchell immediately. Ms. Evans at the gate, too. Full investigation starts now, and we're offering you compensation. Name your terms. Keep your money, Olivia said, her voice steady. I want accountability for everyone who's been treated like this. He paused, then nodded again. Done. We're grounding this crew. New teams boarding now. You'll fly safe, I promise. The call ended, and Mark barked orders into his radio. Within 10 minutes, a replacement captain, a wiry woman named Karen Phillips, rushed aboard, her uniform crisp, her handshake firm as she met Olivia. Colonel, she said, I'm honored to fly you. This won't happen again. A fresh cabin crew followed, their faces a mix of nerves and respect. Rachel Evans was next to go. Olivia watched from the plane as security approached the gate counter, stripping Rachel of her badge. Her protests, I was just doing my job, faded as she was escorted out, her bun unraveling, her career in ashes. The plane's engines roared to life, the new crew moving with efficiency. Olivia settled into 3A, her bag stowed, her photo safe. Passengers around her whispered, some leaning over to thank her. You showed them, a man in 4B said, his voice low. Proud of you. She nodded, her gaze out the window as Atlanta shrank below. Daniel, Sarah, and Rachel were gone, cuffed, fired, finished. Southern Sky scrambled to contain the fallout, their CEO's promises ringing hollow against the videos already spreading online. By takeoff, the airline announced a $20 million fund for passengers wronged by staff bias, a number that would climb as more stories poured in. Olivia leaned back, her cheek still tender, her mind sharp. She didn't need their money, didn't want their pity. She'd fought for this, on battlefields, in skies, now here. Daniel thought he'd break her. Instead, she'd broken his world, and she wasn't done yet. Flight 782 landed at Reagan National Airport as dusk settled over Washington, D.C., the city's monuments glowing faintly against the horizon. Olivia Bennett stepped onto the tarmac, her carry-on in tow, her navy sweater rumpled from the ordeal. The sting on her cheek had dulled, but the fire in her chest burned bright. Passengers trailed behind, some whispering her name, others clutching phones with footage that would soon reshape an industry. She didn't linger. Her war wasn't won with applause. It was won with action. By morning, the internet was ablaze. Clips of Daniel Hayes' slap and Olivia's Medal of Honor reveal racked up tens of millions of views. Trending under Hero Strikes Back, Southern Sky Airlines reeled, their initial $20 million fund ballooning into a $50 million settlement as hundreds of passengers shared their own stories. Black travelers bumped from seats, Latino families grilled at gates, Asian businessmen ignored mid-flight. Olivia sat in her D.C. hotel, coffee in hand, scrolling through the flood. She didn't smile, she planned. At the Veterans Gala that night, she wore her dress blues, the Medal of Honor heavy on her chest. The crowd, generals, senators, CEOs, leaned in as she spoke. I didn't fight for this country to be slapped on my own soil, she said, her voice clear, unwavering. This isn't about one flight. It's about every flight, every gate, Every passenger told they don't belong. She met their eyes, unflinching. We've got the power to change it, so let's use it. Change came fast. Southern Sky launched a zero-tolerance policy, firing 10 more staff linked to bias complaints within a month. They installed real-time reporting apps. Passengers could flag issues mid-flight, data streaming straight to regulators. Complaints tripled, not from worse service, but from voices finally heard. Airport cameras synced to a national database, footage locked for 90 days after any incident, ending the era of lost evidence. Olivia briefed airline boards, her citation beside her, her words, steel. Fix the system, she said, or it'll keep breaking people. They listened. Diversity hiring surged, pilots, attendants, managers reflecting the passengers they served. Daniel Hayes mailed her an apology, his handwriting uneven. I was blind. I'm paying for it. She set it aside, unanswered. His lesson was his own. Her daughter, a junior at Spelman College, signed up for aviation school, her eyes bright. You didn't just take them down, Mom, she said. You built something better. From a DC rooftop, Olivia watched planes arc across the sky, their light steady, sure. She'd turned a moment of shame into a movement, not for herself, but for everyone after her. The air felt cleaner now, the fight worth it. She'd won wars before. This one, she'd won for good.